Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 2 of the Back 9. We're already on episode 2, everybody. I didn't know if I'd ever get episode 1 made, so the fact that we are on episode 2 is a big deal. But welcome in, like I said, my name is NineWholeGrains, host of the Back 9, the Splatoon-centric podcast, where we aim to delve just a little bit deeper and find the scenes stories and discussions that are fun for you all, and most importantly, fun for me. So welcome in, like I have said. We've got a lot to get to today. You can see over on the side, the sidebar has been updated, as has our ticker. Let me go ahead and get that up here for you all, because we have some updates to talk about with regards to the ticker, and I think you all will enjoy them, because a lot of the feedback that I got was related to the ticker. You can see it right here, and to recap a little bit of last week, we had a great first show. We got it up on YouTube very quickly. The interview with Quake went really well, and you all let me know that. I want to thank everybody who liked the video, who subscribed on YouTube, who was in chat, and who ended up following up and retweeting everything that we did related to the show. The piece of feedback that I got the most was that you wanted to see more of the ticker. So what I have done is I have made it so that the ticker is viewable on all of the different pages, all the different backdrops that we will see today. And we will have a few of them a little bit more production value went in to this. I know it doesn't look like a ton of production value went into the ticker, but I promise that it will be fun for you all to enjoy. You will also notice that we have 2 tournament results that you will see scrolling through. There will be the GSM qualifier. The GSM Grand Prix 3 Open Qualifier number 1 is on there, as well as the Splatoon Amateur Circuit Weekly 1 Gold Bracket results. Okay, that was a mouthful. Y'all have really long tournament names, but thankfully the results were very good. It seemed that a lot of people were happy with both of the events, so you will see those all listed down there below. Please let me know if I had any mistakes in them. I copied them directly from the Battlefy and Smash GG brackets, so if it's wrong, don't shoot the messenger. But if it's wrong, please let me know so that I can fix it. All right, so we're going to go ahead here pretty quickly and start to get into this interview, because you can see on the side GSM3 and the Splatoon World League. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that than I did last week, and the soapbox might take a little bit longer as well. We also have a new poll that will come up that we'll talk about later, and we will also be discussing the results of the last poll, as well as some discussion that you all had on the poll itself. So I think we're going to have a good time with that. But you all are here for something very important, and that is a certain interview that is going down. I am interviewing the Baron of Socks, the beefy, breezy bracket boy himself, Dragonuto, and I'm going to go ahead and unmute him here so that you all can hear his beautiful voice and fantastic mic quality as well. I believe you are unmuted, my friend. Dragonuto, are you ready?
I am ready here today at 9.
All right, well, thank you again for agreeing to do this with me. As always, I like to let whoever my guest is take the first segment of the interview to talk a bit about their journey through Splatoon. Wow, I am batting 1,000 today, let me tell you. But how you started, a brief summary of where you got to now.
Well, I guess I'm an old player. I'm OG. I've been here with 5 years now. So all the way back in the Squid Wars days, before the game even came out, I was hanging out on there, and I sort of, well, I've had a kind of, I go through the back, you know. I was never on the front. I never had a big team. I was never a big presence or anything. I went through all the CD underbelly. I was part of a team called the Meme Team, which had a terrible, well, everything about us. We were terrible people, but we got our placements every now and then.
That's a terrible, what a way to introduce your first team. We were just terrible people, the real scum of the earth.
I mean, we weren't the best. We weren't nice people. I was looking through our chat the other day. It's I was 15 at the time, man. I was young. You know, it's a rough time for everybody. But I ended up getting picked by Dude to be one of the members of his UCOS team. UCOS being the old European Championship that was run by the community way back in the day. Got third in that one, so kind of made a bit of a name for myself there doing that. And eventually got into TOing thanks to a friend of mine who was on the Looty staff. And I've been with Looty obviously for all seasons past season 3, so coming into season 9 or 10 soon, which is pretty insane. And yeah, I've just sort of been going through all that. I've still managed to play at kind of a high level. I'm in +2 high tier scrim servers. I'm not on a part of a team, but I at least have that sort of stuff going for me.
Yeah.
And
Also, the
yeah, kind of
preeminent
catching up.
vanilla jet main too, if my sources tell me correctly.
Oh yeah, yeah, the best vanilla jet you've ever seen. Nobody can beat me, man. I'm top 500 vanilla jet. I bring it into scrims. Best weapon.
I
But yeah,
love it.
that catches you up with me.
Well, that's I mean
That's
that's a
roughly
lot
about it.
too. And fun fact, you and I have actually met before at Squidstorm 2017 when you were playing with Team Beer. That was the
Yes.
first time I got to meet you.
Yeah, it was a great event actually. We got drunk the entire bracket. It was kind of fun.
So I have a question for you. How terrifying is it to be on a team where literally everybody there could crush you? And this would apply if I
Oh
was in your
my.
spot too. But Sammy, BSME, and Kendall, like, were you
Oh
ever
my
scared for
god.
your life?
Oh, dude, honestly, Sammy is a scary bloke. Oh, I okay. I got lost in Boston. Partly my fault, but basically partly theirs. But they dropped me outside of a GameStop because I forgot my Pro controller at home, and I had to buy a new one for the tournament. So they dropped me outside of a GameStop and go to get breakfast. Now I didn't know if they would drop me outside to take me back to the venue or just going to drop me there and make my own way back. So I assumed the second, which probably wasn't a great idea. And I don't have service or data over there, so I can't get in contact with anybody. So I just start wandering through Boston alone. And supposedly Sammy and Kendall got really worried about me. So they might be big beefy boys, but they are most definitely caring individuals.
Don't let Sammy hear that. He'll never let you hear the end of it. So you talked a little bit about you got into TOing, it seems, partway through your journey. So I'm assuming that your goal when you started off wasn't to be a TO, but was there a specific event or a series of events that made you want to be a TO, or was it just an opportunity you saw that you decided to take?
Well, I mean, you can go either way with that one, really. I didn't want to be a TO. No, you're correct there. I had no precedence, no way of thinking that I wanted to go into that. But I didn't have. I had some gripes with the Looty TOs. I wasn't wasn't friendly with them, and most of the I disagree with a lot of their decisions and that of the decisions of early tournament makers. And eventually, when I got the chance, knowing a guy called Demios, he got me into TOing and doing all of that. When I got the chance to get involved with Looty, I wanted to bring my own ideas to the table. So I sort of brought myself forward and got into that through that way. And yeah, that's just sort of like you don't want. I feel like that's the story behind most TOs. They don't try to be a TO. They just play the game and then they're like, oh, I could do that better. So they make a tournament and then there you are. You're a TO. You've done it now. You're invested and you can't stop.
I love that. No, I didn't want to do this, but I think I can do it better than you, so I'm just going to do it anyway. I I like that a lot because, we're entering a stage now where we are starting to get to the point where there are people who are joining or who want to be commentators or who want to be TOs. So it's really interesting to hear that first crop that came up, or at least for you, it was sort of seeing a need and thinking that you could do it better. So, I mean, do you think that's accurate? Are you seeing more TOs start to pop up with the intention of being TOs?
I wish more people were popping up with the intention of being TOs. I see people thinking that they are TOs, but and criticizing TOs, but never actually trying to fill the gap that they see there. So I want more people to take on a TO role, and I do hope that more people do crop up and try to fit into that unfortunate slot.
Well, it's so I mean, do you have any advice then for those people who are trying to come in? Because like
Oh yeah,
I mean, we both know, and I think most people agree that we do need more TOs. But I mean, what's your advice to them?
start talking to people immediately. Like if you have any sort of like, I want to be a TO, I want to run a tournament, I want to help someone run a tournament, just talk to a TO that's already around. People like K-Bot, Jordan, Black, me, even me, any of the Looty TOs, we will all talk you into becoming a TO. That's fine. We will put you on one of our tournaments if you have anything you want to do, because we need them. We're in dire need of more TOs. Like, we have a very small handful of people who willingly run events, and they work really hard to do so. And I just think that if we got a couple more people in and we were able to bolster them, there's an opportunity there. So if you want to be a TO, come on, we're not scary.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I don't know. TOs definitely bite. I've seen it, man. Came out with a clipboard or an iPad is one of the most terrifying things you will ever see.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet, but I have seen Jordan get angry. So I mean, I know a little bit.
So I'm gonna let you take as long as you need to talk about this, because you've mentioned, as we were talking a little bit in DMs before this, that there was a lot of history and a lot of trouble starting up European lands at the start. That there were a lot of people who tried to make it happen, a lot of different attempts, and that most of them fell through. So I'm going to get out of the way here. Take as long as you need to walk us all through your history with bringing lands to the forefront in Europe and your involvement with Breeze and Breeze's history as a whole.
Yeah, sure thing. If you have any questions, you can interrupt me during this.
Sure.
I got bullet points to get through on this one. So
Go ahead.
basically, it all kind of started after Squid Storm, like the original Squid Storm. EGTV wanted to make a foothold in Europe, and along with me and a guy called Stevens, we had an idea that we wanted to bring to the UK. We wanted the UK to be sort of this place that will start the LAN series out. So during this time, I was still young. Stevens was decently young. We had all these ideas coming through, and we were trying to funnel them into something, but we didn't have the capital to get it off of the ground. Like I don't know if people realize, but lands are incredibly expensive to start up. When you want to get into lands, you have to have some money to buy a venue, to buy the equipment, and you'll have people some money flowing with ticket orders, but you want some of that to go to a prize pool. So unfortunately, it didn't really work out for us. So that was the first attempt that I'm aware of people trying to bring Europe, like a land to Europe. And there was kind of a big gap, at least from my knowledge, a huge gap from there up until about Splatoon 2. So obviously, after that first event fell through, EGTV were known for being the guys that bring lands to places. They were the only people that had done lands at that point, and that would be the case for most of Splatoon 1, I believe, aside from GSM coming in at the end, or the start of GSM. And then when it came to Splatoon 2, it started to happen again. People were coming up, they had ideas, they wanted to get involved, they knew that they could start something because there was enough of a community here. And it's a couple of TOs, myself included, decided that we wanted to try it again. And I was a bit older, everybody was a bit older, the community was a bit more knowledgeable. So we got some money up, we secured the bag, I guess proverbially you could say. We had a venue picked out and we were implementing things we wanted, but we needed some support from Nintendo Europe, because whilst we could get the venue and we could get everything else, getting that final bit of switches and docks was it was expensive. It's a lot of money, especially if you want more than a few setups, and including that mixers and headphones and it just really does. It does. It amounts to a lot of money. I've heard the numbers from the first Squid Storm. It's atrocious. I felt really bad when I heard about that. But it got them off the ground, so that's good in the end. But obviously, unfortunately, in that case, Nintendo of Europe was unable to help us. And while we were waiting for that to happen, there was some disagreements between the TOs, and it kind of fell apart. And then that basically cut out. Luckily, a few of those TOs did go on to make Rising Squidland, which happened a bit later on. But that was kind of the original of Rising Squidland, because this was supposed to be happening in Germany, this one. So it all kind of that all kind of worked out, at least. Aside from that, myself on my own, along with a friend of mine, a close friend of mine, inspired by a guy called Pacecat. You know Pacecat?
Oh yeah, Pacecat.
He runs these. Yeah, he runs the Squid Social in Canada. So he's got a little event that he ran at a gaming bar, and I was kind of inspired because I knew that we had one in my hometown of Bristol, and so me and my friend we managed to cobble some money together and pay for a couple setups at this place for about 6 hours, I believe it was. And we managed to get like 15 to 20 people to come down to this one-day event, and it gets the cogs thinking. You're like, can we run something like this? Is it possible to run something bigger like this? And everything, calmed down, but there was definitely an inkling, excuse the pun,
oh my God. Wow. I didn't. Are you normally a punster, or was that just off the top of your head?
Just off the top of my head. I'm usually pretty boring when it comes to puns, but that was sort of my own side project. And then in the UK, in Europe, we have our regional championships. So Nintendo will run a regional championship in each country for the European Championship that comes together at the end of it. And on the UK Championships in November 2018, roughly this was, I heard that there was going to be a LAN. And that SRB2 dude and that SRB2, oh my God, his name, Jesus. That SRB2 dude. It's really hard to speak his name when trying to go quiet. It's like, dude, everybody knows him. Dude and a couple of his friends were trying to start this thing up. And I found myself in the server after some questioning and asking and seeing what I could do to help, as they wanted to run a community version of the Nintendo event. I was skeptical. I'm not going to lie. I didn't believe in any of it. I'd been through so many lands which just fell completely through when it came to this. So I was skeptical. I didn't want to get involved with it, but I still stayed there and I watched on from a little bit in the distance. And I wanted to focus more on the fact that in the March coming in 2019 last year, I would be commentating at European Championships, and that was more of a focus for me. So I was kind of just staying in the back and not really paying attention until Nintendo UK gave them their support, and I realized they're gonna do this. They're gonna be able to pull this off, and that was kind of where Breeze was starting out. So these guys had managed to set this all up and get this all ready, just in time, and with the help of Nintendo UK. And I was like, okay, I need to stop dragging my feet. I'm just letting these guys down. And obviously, you can understand. I probably I felt quite bad at this point. Like I'd done nothing. Hadn't been helping. So I wrote the rule set and I helped out with the bracket and made sure everything was in place for when that time came. And I mean, well, as you can see, Summer Breeze, our first LAN, was a huge success. So that's kind of how that one came to be. We got 110 attendees, so it was pretty good. And now we're coming up to Winter Breeze.
That's awesome. And there was a couple points in there that I'd kind of like you to expand on, and also just a question I have. The first question might be the easy one. Where did the name Breeze come from? What inspired that?
Oh my god, the weather, I guess. The UK isn't known for our greatest, the greatest weather ever. If I remember correctly, it was kind of a silly idea to have it named based on the based on the seasons. So you'd have winter freeze, summer breeze, autumn leaves, and spring something. So it was an interesting idea. Not my idea, luckily. It was a pretty weird one, but yeah, breeze kind of sprung out from that, and a cool little. It works as a cool little logo, and also that's why we have the seasonal naming. So summer breeze, winter breeze is because of that idea.
Well, yeah, that's why I was asking. It seems like such a simple name, but it's so marketable too. And I think that simple plus marketable is the holy grail of names. So
it's an incredible way to go. Yeah, it worked out for us. People like it.
I'm glad that it did. And now this, you obviously don't have to reveal any names or anything like that, but I've been never truly on staff for a LAN, but I get to see a lot of these things. Sometimes I get to help out with some of the aspects of the LAN. About how big was this original staff that came together to put this on before it had the Nintendo support there? I'm just curious. Like I said, you don't have to name names, but about how many was it? Was it 10, 15 people, 20 people, or was it just a handful?
Originally, I believe before Nintendo's support, so there was 3 original TOs. These were the people that got me involved. So 3 were the original ones that came up with the idea, and I think it comes out, if we're talking just TOs, it would be 1, 2, 3. I'm reading it off the list now. I can't remember the exact numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that'd be 8 people that would originally came up with this idea. And I mean, obviously, they managed to execute it perfectly.
I was gonna say that's almost empowering to know that it started with 3 and then after growing hit 8 people, and that's, man, just a handful of people with enough ambition, you can get some great stuff done.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. That's what power of TOs, man. Like they come together. Then we can get some stuff done. It might hurt us, but we love the pain.
Well, now we're going down an entire different avenue of this discussion. I was checking down my notes here, and I'm sweating like, oh no, I didn't think he'd say this.
Hey, all TOs are a little bit masochistic.
K-Bot, can you confirm? K-Bot is in the chat right now, so we'll see. Oh, DJ's in the chat too, so can either one of you confirm? So are you two masochistic? And if so, how masochistic? Will we wait for that? What else is there about like this specific breeze that has come up here? Are there any new boundaries that you're trying to push? What did you learn from your first breeze?
Well, we learned that we needed less time to run the tournament than we thought. So I planned the tournament I planned the round timings out for the bracket with a sort of I was very lenient, very strict, very non-lenient. I wanted everything to be done in a short period of time, and I left like 40-minute gap for a game that should have taken 20 minutes, and we ended the tournament with like 2 hours left. So I'm gonna be a bit more on the fly with this. We've got more time as well, and we've got more people, and more setups. So it's a 300 max venue this time, outside of the 100 that we had last time, even though we managed to get up to 110 attendees, which is, the math doesn't work out, but whatever. So we got a bigger venue, more setups, and I'm going to be able to make the tournament bigger.
So I'm trying to think now, like, I'm trying to think back to the first few events that I was a part of back in Splatoon 1 and even in early Splatoon 2, and I always remember, like you mentioned, the docks being a big deal and getting the venue out here too. I mean, how many volunteers does it take to run an event of that size? Because again, I know outside of the TOs, there tends to be a volunteer staff as well. But this sounds like this is a massive venue, man. How many people does it take?
It takes 300, the new venue. So it's a 300-person venue. Before we had 13 helpers, and that was in the 100-person venue. So we're probably going to expand that to about 20, I think. I know I'm taking on a couple extra people to help me run the tournament outside of just me and McFooty, who did it before.
So you multiply the amount of people by 3, but you're not able to multiply the amount of helpers. That's the most Splatoon like TO thing that you've ever had to do. Like, all right, well, we have more people, so we need more people. Well, we don't have any more people. Oh, okay then. Well,
well, it's just kind of hard when you think about it. It's like not everybody wants to help out. They're going there for a bit of fun, so you kind of gotta like convince people. Can you just help me do the setups on Friday? Come on, it's not gonna take that long. Just a couple hours of your time. Just come on down and help me do that.
The next thing you know, you're underneath tables trying to figure out which plugin goes to which switch, and then you wonder what in the world you've done to get yourself into that situation.
Oh, you say that. An hour before we were running Summer Breeze, we still hadn't finished the setups, and it was up until the 15 minutes before the tournament started that we figured out what one of the issues with one of the setups was, because the Ethernet cables weren't working, and we were confused as to why the whole thing wasn't working. It just wasn't plugged in properly, and I was sweating profusely and losing my mind because I thought the tournament was going to go behind, but. Yeah, no, it's down to the wire.
It is. Actually, that reminds me of another story at Don't Park in the Grass 2018. This is one of the best stories I think I've ever experienced at a LAN. We were plugging in setups, and then I get called over because one of the corner stations, which of course, for those of you who don't know, has 8 televisions, 8 docks, all of these different things, and you have to figure out why the entire setup isn't working. So nothing on this is working. I can't figure out why, and I look in, and this was Marsh's area. Marsh had plugged one of the power or the surge protectors into itself. So that was why we weren't getting any power, and then the joke infinite power became a running gag for the rest of the event. So, I mean, it's amazing when you have to plug in so many things, even the small little mistakes that you wouldn't ever expect yourself to make, they start to pop up.
Yeah, it you don't realize it until it happens, and then you're like, oh no, and you're scrambling because you think it's a bigger error, and
Right.
it's just somebody plugging a surge adapter into itself. And yeah, it's fine though. It worked out in the end. It always works out in the end. That's the thing. It's like if it might be a jumbled mess before it starts, but it works out in the end.
Yeah, what's the old adage? If we only have 5 minutes till we go live, it'll take 5 minutes to fix the issue. I think that's the procrastinator's creed, I think is what that's called.
It sounds about right. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you there.
Well, I know you mentioned that you had a lot of bullet points. Do you have any more Breeze bullet points to get through? Anything else you'd like to say or advertise about the event?
Yes, I do. I've got a link to post in chat and also information to say. So obviously Winter Breeze is going to be the biggest one yet. It's still a one-day event, but we will be having hopefully a 2-day one in the future. We've already hit 156 attendees. It's going to be a double elimination bracket. We've got 24 teams signed up, and we've only got 32 slots for teams. So I'm hoping that people will fill that up for me. So if you have any way you want to come to Breeze, or if you think that you want to come to Breeze, just sign up. Come on. We need the numbers. It's great. It's in the UK.
Need the numbers. I love it.
We need the numbers.
One day I will attend a Breeze. It was really unfortunate that I wasn't able to attend this one, and I was trying hard. You can ask Marsh. We were like running all sorts of different numbers, trying to figure out if I drove to Miami and then took a flight from Miami, which was the cheapest flight to the UK for whatever reason, could I do it there? And it wasn't able to come together, but I swear to you, I will attend either a Breeze or a Rising Squid LAN. I will attend a European LAN at some point. I have to see what you guys are all about.
Oh, you totally should. The European LANs are something else. Like, I've been to an NA LAN, I've been to a European LAN. I like the European one better, but I mean, you know, that's European pride, I guess.
I was going to say conflict of interests there, but that actually brings up a good point, because you are one of the people who has experienced both NA Splatoon and EU Splatoon, both on a LAN sense and an online sense. And I'm really curious here, and this is one of the bullet points that I'm most interested in your ideas on, because as you said earlier, pretty much all of the early LANs and a lot of the early tournaments were run by Endgame TV, of course, Ink TV that came up, GSM now. all of these organizers have really been based out of North America. And so there's a lot of conventions that I feel like we take for granted that have been catered to the North American audience. And a lot of the big content creators, or maybe not the big content creators, but a lot of the big streamers certainly are also in North American time slots. So as a European player and as a European TO, I mean, what struggles have there been for you? Have there been any struggles? What is your perspective on the way that the scene has come up?
Unfortunately for us, there is a lot of issues with us being in Europe because of the surplus of NA tournaments. They're usually set at times which aren't exactly applicable for EU players. So it's quite often that you'll see European players staying up until 1 to 3 a.m. sometimes just to play in a tournament. And that's kind of where that joke comes from, where European, like Extermination, the team Extermination, once they had to leave a tournament in grand finals because it was bedtime. And there's not much they could do about that. It's all fun and games, but it's 1 a.m. for them. They're young children. They're 14 to 16 years old.
Say, Extermination were also like, they had to go to junior high the next day too. That's man, those were the days. So
they got stuck in a sort of a tough place, and they can't really do much about it. And because of the lack of European European tournaments at the time, there wasn't really much. They had to. If they wanted to stay on top of the meta, and if they wanted to stay competitive, they had to enter these. And obviously they caught a lot of flack for that. But there's nothing really you can do. I mean, a point comes to mind for me. I once set an alarm for 3 a.m. to get up and play in a 2v2 tournament with my friend Ant, who was in the Pacific time zone. And I had sixth form the next day, which is British college, I guess. I had to get up the next day for that and cycle in, which is a long cycle. And so just so I could enter a tournament and keep up with the well, I wouldn't say 2v2's the meta, but keeping up with staying competitive and hanging out with my friend. And I guess that's kind of a thing that all European players to an extent experience.
So then, I mean, obviously I know Sendo has done a ton with his events that he has run at more European friendly time slots, and I know he's not the only one that's done it, but from your perspective, is there anything that can be done? What changes would you like to see to help Europe out a little bit? Because Europe is chock full of talent. I think most people would agree that maybe 3 of the top 5 teams, some people might even tell you 3 of the top 4 teams, come from Europe. So what more can we do to help out Europe here and bring this closer together?
Well, yeah, 3 of the top 3 teams. So,
there we go. Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Hey, you guys didn't win crown. We did. Okay. So there isn't really much you can do in the end. Like, time zones are time zones. It's just, you just need European TOs and new European TOs setting up tournaments every night of the week at European friendly times, or people, things like Luti and Splatoon World League, running tournaments and ladders that are applicable to everybody around the world in all time zones, so that they can play their matches whenever it's good for them. Stuff like that is really the only way you can go to get that done.
So then you also mentioned earlier that you, of course, prefer EU lands. You think there's no major comparison here, but what are the differences between the EU and NA events? I know part of it is pride too, but I mean, do you know, and this can be more of a fun thing, do you notice any real differences between the European players, the NA players, the NA events, the European events?
Gameplay wise, absolutely not. We're all Western players. There's like identicalness between us. But if we're talking like language barrier, diversity, I'd say the European crowd is a lot more diverse. There's a lot more languages for one. Like, it's not just English. It's German, French, Swedish, like Dutch. It's all there. And I guess it's kind of hard to talk to everybody. But I think that provides a load of different perspectives and a lot of different things to mesh on and meld on that you wouldn't really normally get in just an English speaking event.
So actually, that's a great point. Like, have you run into any troubles from a tournament organizing standpoint due to the language barrier? I really didn't even think about that, but yeah, you're planning events for multiple countries, lots of different countries in some cases.
Well, the only event that I've ever really had issues like that with would be Luti, but luckily for us, we do have Spanish-speaking members of staff and German-speaking members of staff, so we can kind of cover the bases on that one.
And on the note of Luti here, is there anything about Luti that you'd like to talk about here? I know I didn't really list it in our original pre-game discussion that I sent to you, but a lot of people are very curious. Luti for a long time has been a standard, especially for mid-level teams and other people to start gaining notoriety and work their way up the scene. Do you have any stories about that or anything you'd like to say with that?
Soon, TM.
Soon, TM. I think I saw that earlier in chat too.
That's all that he does. That's whenever there's an event on the horizon, it's soon, TM. No, we've got a season in the works. Don't worry, it's coming around. It's not much of a change to the formula aside from some additions and some ironing out creases and details. Like, I think we found something that works really well for a lot of teams. We still need to find a way to capture the top percentage of players. Like, that's always been an issue with Looty. Div X and Div 1, they hold so much weight for some reason between everybody. I still don't understand why. What's so attractive about putting Div X in your bio? I don't know. But Div X and Div 1, they don't attract the teams that they should be attracting, and we need to find something that will get these players to play. But getting people to commit 6 weeks of their life to a tournament for no prize really, and for not much clout that they can't get out of other single or double day tournaments, well, it's quite tough.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's been more popular amongst the mid-level teams is partially because for them it's one of the only opportunities they get to play with other, maybe not the only opportunity, but it is a great way to play with other people that are their own level, because it's so hard to find competitors around your own level, especially when you're starting out.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that's where Looty excels the most. We managed to get teams and players who normally wouldn't play in tournaments because they find it intimidating or hard to get into. They can join, play with people around their skill level and slowly work their way up. I mean, you hear stories about it, and I would argue that we could put a little badge on it saying that we helped the one out to get where he is today. Because I mean, I don't know if you remember back in the day, he grinded out and he made his way up by all the way through the Looty ranks, and I would say that we helped with that. And honestly, I think we've done that with a lot of players. Like, people don't realize that Looty's not for top teams, even though we want it to be, as well as middling teams, but it's mostly for those teams that need that extra boost, of confidence, need to learn certain gameplay mechanics and awareness that you would only pick up through extended play in like tournament level scenarios.
So the next time the one kills me with his Brella, I will know specifically to blame you. And
well, Looty, whole of Looty.
Dragonuto, it is perfect. Yeah, no, this one's going all on you. You've put yourself out as a face. Now you have to feel the consequences of doing so.
No, I've done it now.
You have done it. And one other question I have here before we get into the sock story, because a lot of people have asked about it. They've been very curious. Your subtitle here is Lover of Socks, but what has your experience been with commentating? I'm curious too, commentator to commentator, what you've learned throughout it, where you've gone with it, and what you enjoy about it.
Well, first off, I absolutely love it. It's so much fun. You get to talk about players that you see every day. You get to basically pick them up. You get to talk about your friends, and you get to commentate on these exciting games. My experience has been incredible. I've got to work with Nintendo. I know you have too, and they are absolutely lovely, and they do so much for us. And I've got to go to places I didn't think I would get to go to ever. So it's commentating is great, and I mean, don't you agree? It's so much fun. It's so much fun.
I'm biased, but yeah, that's. I mean, it's true though. Your point about getting to watch all the best games, it's true. We get the best seat in the house to watch the games and talk about them.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I don't know about your experience working with Nintendo, but it's been an absolute amazing.
Oh,
they're so good.
It is. It's like they always say don't meet your heroes, but in my experience with Nintendo, meeting my heroes has been one of the most exciting parts of my life. So I'm glad that it's treated you so well. I very much love what you bring when you commentate. You have a certain energy to you that
Thank you.
I think, well, like there's hype and then there's energy, and I feel like you can force hype. But when you just have an energy about you, I don't think that you can force that. And I think that amongst all the other wonderful skill sets you possess as a commentator, that makes you very attractive to listen to, if that is even a phrase. But
I mean, thanks. I'll take that as a big compliment. I think I get genuinely excited when I commentate. You know, you hear people hype commentate and they're like, they get all loud and they're like, wow, that's amazing. But you don't feel the genuineness behind it. And I feel like with me and you as well, we know what's going on and we're like, wow, that's amazing. That's so cool. What you just did, incredible. And like, I genuinely get so excited and like, you get out your channel, you're like, wow, amazing.
Well, we love the game. We love the game. That's all commentators are giant nerds who love the game and aren't afraid to talk about how much they love the game.
That's the best explanation I've heard about it. Yeah.
All right. It is time for the sock. I'm going to let you again take as long as you need. If you don't have more bullet points on the sock than you did about Breeze, I'll be very disappointed, but let's hear it. Let's hear the sock story.
Okay, well, to start this off, before I get into this, I don't think this is weird. It's not that weird. I don't understand why people think it's weird, but you'll understand where I was coming from when I came up with it originally and why I did it. And as I walk you through this, okay? So, it started when I got to play the game first. I was not a fan of the Pro Controller, and I know that might come to a shock a lot of people. People say the Pro Controller is amazing, but I hated it. I didn't like the way that it felt in my hands. It was uncomfortable, and I refused to use it. So I used the Joy-Con grip for 3-ish months after the game came out, purely out of spite and dispute because I didn't want to get used to it. I preferred the Wii U game tablet, if that's anything to hear. And after dealing with the Joy-Con grip for a long time, I decided Pro Controller, fine, I'll cave. But it still didn't feel right, and I still didn't want to use it. So I thought of an incredible idea, off the top, amazing idea. I don't know what I was. I must have been in a genius mood at that day, but I thought, what if I get this fresh pair of socks that I just got for Christmas, and this pack of elastic bands that I have hanging about.
I thought you were going to say that you also got for Christmas.
I mean, I don't know about you. That'd be a pretty disappointing Christmas gift.
I mean, you've already got socks, so I mean, why not just add it on there?
I'll have you know, socks are the best Christmas gift. I love socks. Socks at Christmas. That's big. But yeah, I was like, okay, I'll combine the two. And the socks added just enough girth to the controller for it to feel nice in my hands. So I cut little holes out for the buttons. Put one sock on one way, the other sock on the other. Stuck elastic bands around the middle and the handles, and I used that for about 6 months. Specifically, this very banjaxed controller grip. I mean, I know that they sell the grips as well, but that's just kind of where I went. It was craft, home design, DIY.
Well, you saved a lot of money, if nothing else. I have to imagine that a pair of socks is probably a little bit cheaper than store-bought controller grips.
Oh, incredibly, so much cheaper. I didn't have to pay anything for it. It was a Christmas gift. But yeah, it was incredibly cheap, and the elastic bands too. So I must have put that together for like at most £2, which would be $3 roughly, just under $3 in American money. But yeah, and I used that for a little while before I started to get slightly irate with the fact that whilst I cut these holes out for the buttons, they kept going over them and layering them up. So I wasn't able to properly see what buttons I was pressing, and I'd misjump, or I wouldn't be able to push my stick all the way one way because the fabric would get stuck underneath it. So I got a new pair of socks and stitched underneath all of the sort of holes that I made to kind of pull them back to make room for the sticks. And that was Sock Controller 2, which again people said was gross, but I don't get that. It's not like I cleaned it. It's not. The best part about it is you could just take the sock off and throw it in the washing machine. So I don't see the problem with it. But yeah, that's what I used to do. And yeah, when they started to become unfortunate and a bit of a mistake, I decided once more to iterate upon my design, and that's when I came to the design just before my last one, where I bought some textured spray paint for it's like a stone texture, like like a gravelly texture.
So it's like a matte sort of thing. Almost?
Yeah, like I don't know how it's like. It was a spray paint with bits in it, and the bits provided sort of a sandpaper texture to your hands. So I sprayed this on my grips, and I made the faceplate a nice vibrant green. And to kind of keep alive the whole sock boy thing, I bought a piece of felt and I put it on the back of my controller for grip. So I've been using that for about 1.5 years. And only recently did I upgrade to a glow in the dark sock, which unfortunately hasn't got any sock left on it. So that's kind of been the journey of the sock controller, which I think is kind of underwhelming. I don't understand what people find so funny about it.
Underwhelming? This is the greatest success story Splatoon's ever had. The sheer ingenuity. Like, are you a crafty person outside of this?
No, that was the thing that was so weird. Like I was never good at arts and crafts. I never did that sort of stuff. So the original sock was just a shot in the dark that just ended up working out.
So
And yeah,
you learned an entire new skill set just to make sure that you had your grip the way you wanted it.
yeah, Splatoon player ingenuity. It was the way to go.
This is stunning. This is remarkable. This is even better than I was expecting. I didn't realize that. I mean, I had seen the sock version 3. I saw that tweet, and I was vaguely aware of sock version 1 and 2, but I was under the impression that you'd either had somebody else do it or something along those lines. I didn't realize that you had upgraded it yourself and made so many different iterations. I'm still on Pro Controller number 1. I haven't even considered buying another Pro Controller, much less doing anything to mine. I'm afraid that if I take one screw out, that I'll never be able to use this thing again.
Well, that's the thing. I was when it came to it, I was like, if I want to make changes to this controller and do it properly, I can't just stick something on the outside and be done with it. So why don't I just take it apart and do it myself? Now, I looked it all up. I was looking up controller mods and such. And it was like, well, you got to sandpaper this. You got to put some primer on there and and like, you don't realize how much effort goes into it until you do it. And I would say, I won't lie, my first attempts were horrible. They didn't look appetizing or appealing, but in the end I kind of got used to it. And you just, yeah, I mean, I guess I learned a new skill.
That's awesome, and it is really cool to see people. I just like how in tennis people want their tennis racket strung a certain way, or ping pong you have different sorts of grips and of pads and things like that. I think it's really cool to see players, and I know it's very common in esports as well, with the specific mouse and specific keyboard combination, really fine-tuning every aspect of their gameplay.
Well, yeah, I guess you could call it fine tuning. I mean, in the end, it became sort of a vanity thing. Like as I get more and more used to the Pro Controller, I mean, over time, whilst I still hated it, and I'm still not a massive fan of it to this day, I did get used to the way that the controller feels. And whilst yes, I still use textured spray paint, it's not as extreme as wrapping your controller in socks and elastic bands.
I mean, do you still have the original? So is it still the same Pro Controller that you've just put different socks on, or have you bought 4 separate controllers?
No, no. Okay, so I started at my first Pro Controller is the one that is the one that ended up having the felt on the front and the back. So that was my first Pro Controller, and that was the original sock, the second stock, and then the third sock. So that one was the first controller I have, and the second controller is the one that I've just done recently. So I bought a new controller for that one, just so I can make it, which is something.
I mean, it is too. I was really worried for a second that you were going to say you bought 4 separate controllers for this, and I was starting to run in my head. I'm like, all right, if he said £3, like if he said £2 was $3, like I'm trying to figure out exactly how much money that would have been that you'd spent to get to iteration 4 of this. But I'm happy to know that that was not the case and that was not the full origin story.
Yeah, it'd be £240, which would be around $300 if that was the case. But no, definitely not.
The price of learning, the price of expansion.
I'll tell you what, it's a lot of fun, and I think people. I would encourage more people to mod their controllers with colors and that. Spray paint is incredibly easy to work with. It comes out really well as well. As long as you follow like sort of, well, I mean, obviously you're not going to get it right the first time, but you can always learn from that point, you know. But as long as you follow a tutorial, you can mostly get it done correctly. And yeah, I'd do it. I'd say you do it. Go on, Nine, make your own sock controller. You're gonna make a grain controller. Get some sunflower seeds and some wheat grains and just sprinkle them, and like get some glue and sprinkle them and glue them on the grips. I think that would come out really nice. You can have the Grain Gang controller.
Don't tempt me, man. I'm looking in here right now. There's enough space inside this controller that you could absolutely do something like that. But I might wait. I might wait until this one bites the dust before I get a new controller. It is really miraculous that I'm still on Pro Controller number 1, but
honestly, yeah, you hear so much about them breaking, and you're just like, but mine never broke.
Right, or Joy-Con drift. I haven't had Joy-Con drift either. I've been very, very fortunate with my hardware.
Neither have I. I feel like it's one of those situations where it's like a bit of a minimal thing that kind of goes up and becomes bigger because of people being outraged about it. But I wouldn't know. So.
All right, man. That is the end of the questions I have for you. The floor is yours. Is there anything that you would like to promote? Is there anything else you'd like to discuss, like to add?
Oh, I'm not. Let me think. Off the top of my head, let's go. One, come to Winter Breeze, February 15th in the UK, London. The venue is the Bridge Academy. Or watch it. We are going to save the VOD this time. We did forget last time. Huge mistake. But we are gonna
Learning,
save the VOD.
learning.
Yeah. But we'll save the VOD. You can watch it. Or you can watch it if you can't come. I mean, if you're in America, North America, which is quite far away. But do come along. It'll be a fun event to attend with a lot of really good players, and you can meet me maybe or the SLB2 dude who's big YouTube star. But I think roughly that's about it. Unless you have any more questions for me.
I do have one. Give me your top 5 at Genesis, and in order.
Oh,
I asked
okay.
this. I asked this to Quake, and I have to milk Genesis for as long as I possibly can on this show. So, who's your top 5?
Oh my god! I don't even have the teams. FT win. I think In Control will do well. Quantum. I'm thinking Magistrate might come out of somewhere and actually get something done. And I'm interested in Fisher's Rend, which is Dude and Hitzel's pickup. I'll see how that one goes down as well. So that's my top 5 for getting in the upper half of the bracket.
All right, interesting. A prediction for Magistrate Esports. They have done well at Genesis in the past, so maybe that's not too crazy of a prediction. But all right, so there is his official on document predictions. K-Bot, you can now go ahead and flame him too, as you do me every time that I make predictions. But thank you again, man, so much for coming in and doing this. I hope that you were able to get the story out that you wanted to hear about what it is to TO, some of the stories and struggles that you've gone through. But really, man, thank you so much for making the time to do this.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me on. It's a pleasure to talk about TOing and the experience that I've had doing it for so many years.
All right, here's hoping we see each other again before too long, my friend.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, and so that is going to be the end of this discussion, and it was a good one there. That everything about that sock story, I think, was one of the most creative ways, I think, to mod your controller and work your way through there. So again, Dragonuto, you can follow him on Twitter. Of course, everything that he said about Breeze. Please support European lands. He talked a lot about how difficult it is to get stuff done in Europe and how important it is to support the European events so that they can continue to grow. And I see no reason why doing something as simple as following him on Twitter would be too difficult. I say that as I don't follow him on Twitter, but you know what? Actually, I'm going to do that right now here for everybody. You all will get to see. Everyone knows I have used my follows on Twitter as bait, as ways to inspire people to do things. So you know what? Just for being on my show, there you go. Following. Right there. Such a happy photo here at the top. But we're going to go ahead and move on now to our next discussion, which is GSM3 and the Splatoon World League. For people who are not familiar, over the weekend, I guess it is still technically the weekend, but the GSM Grand Prix 3 Qualifier 1 went on. Of course, if you are not familiar with GSM, stands for Game, Set, Match, and it is one of the organizations that works in Splatoon. LSDJ, Melissa Acid Sunshine, and a whole number of other people work on these events. They do such a great job of putting them on, and they are all online events. They are tied into the Splatoon World League as well. They are also the ones responsible for Beacon and Long Island. I guess it's not Long Island Summer Splat. Maybe it's Long Island Splat. I forget exactly what the rebrand was, but I know it was Long Island Summer Splat at one point. But point is, 2 lanes they put on a year, very, very good. And this was a fun event too. I only got to tune in for the end of it because FT Win won too quickly. But one thing that I did want to point out that we should all sort of celebrate over the course of the event is actually Ryujin, which is a European team that just recently came together, had a great coming out party in this event. You've probably seen down at the bottom the different members of that team, but I'll read them off here. Arm, Kronos, Promano, Getway, Saber, Wanao. Some of those players have been on different European teams. I know some members of El Firmament are on that as well. They got 5th place, and they did it by way of pulling the old lose to 2nd place twice to get 5th place, which is very frustrating. They did lose to Freeze twice, which was Noctis, Watsum, Xeris, Free, and Creamy, which is a fantastic team. And FT Win, of course, did win that event. They got it done. It was not their full roster. They had Cass come in as instead of Itachi. I keep wanting to say Bliss, but I know that the Blissey, I know that the full rebrand is in effect there. And they had Bursty as well. I do not believe that they had Toon for that event. But it was great to see so many European teams come and compete in that, which makes sense as it was at a time slot that worked for them. But also because that means that Europeans have some more results in the Splatoon World League leaderboard. And this is going to take up the bulk of this discussion because this is something that I guess I'm sort of passionate about, because everyone knows that I love statistics, because statistics, one, are very fun for me. They're a resource that I need as a commentator, and I've played fantasy football for like 12 years now. I mean, I absolutely love stats all the way through, and because of that, I enjoy databases and I enjoyed leaderboards. But because the Splatoon World League was announced alongside its ladders, the ladder took all of the discussion, maybe 99% of it, but I felt that people kind of skipped over the whole leaderboard thing, despite the fact that Bleck made a couple of different posts talking about it and what it did. And I know that, of course, a lot of criticism came out at the start. Why am I ranked higher than Kaji? Why am I ranked higher than this person? It doesn't make sense. Ignoring the fact that Bleck admitted that it was mostly Ink TV events, that there needed to be more European events that would get added into it. But there really wasn't much discussion about it in favor of the tournament organizers versus players drama that we stir up every 4 months and like to continually rehash and recycle with the same arguments. But similar attempts have been made to do this in the past, and the reason why I think that we need to take the league and its leaderboard a little bit more seriously, specifically the leaderboard, is because in the past, attempts have either been made via splat stats or via personal rankings that people would make, and neither one of those were met with a ton of positive results, to say the least. Arguments with different formats, the way that the data was presented, things along those lines. It kind of damaged, I think, the idea of leaderboard and statistics in Splatoon. I know Gambawumi does a fantastic job putting up builds and different statistics that people can read, and I know that they have an entire database of different tournaments that are there, but I still think it's something that we haven't fully embraced. So today I am going to make the case of why the leaderboard is a big deal and why we should all take it a little bit more seriously. And, you know, the burden of proof is, I would say, on the leaderboard to show you why it's important. And there are a lot of questions to be asked. Do we need a leaderboard? What is the purpose of a leaderboard? Why is the leaderboard important? And in this 5 more minutes that I have allotted myself for this topic, I'm going to go ahead and break some of those down for you, at least from my perspective. I think first and foremost, for any of you who follow Smash, you should know what the PGR is, the Panda Global Rankings, and you should know how big of a deal it is in Smash Bros, to the point where many players, tournament organizers, go on crusades, outright crusades, if someone is ranked too low or too high. And you may wonder, well, why is that? Ultimately, it's just a bunch of rankings. People should know their approximate skill level. And I do agree to a certain extent, but in Smash Brothers, that is used to pitch your stream. It is used to pitch to sponsors, content, views, all of those things. It's you wear it with pride. People will put it in their bio. They will share when the ranking comes out. It shows their results, and it helps people get on, I guess, on the map, really, because we talk about in Splatoon how hard it is to make your way up to the top and to gain notoriety. Well, in Smash, it might be even harder. It probably is even harder simply because of the sheer mass of people that play the game. So it's very important that if you can show yourself off, and if you've made, let's say, your top 80 or something like that, to be able to call yourself a top 80 player in the world for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, or Super Smash Bros. Melee, or in Project M, with regards to the PM ranking that I know has also been a popular and fun thing for that community, it becomes, I think, a valuable resource and a valuable tool. And it's not necessarily a one-to-one application with Splatoon, because obviously there's players. How do we rank players as in relation to teams? Do we strictly rank teams? What do we do with regards to pickups? But I think there is a similar application, and I'm glad that we had a discussion about Ludi with Dragonuto there, because it brings up a really interesting point, because the top teams know that they are the top teams. They don't need any leaderboard to tell them that, and honestly, there are so few really top-level teams that anyone who is interested in Splatoon's top teams will be able to find that pretty quickly, although I have talked to some other organizations about who top Splatoon teams are. They have been interested, and they ask me who are the top teams. So even the top teams, there may be more ways to market that or market themselves. But again, we talked about the resources that mid-level teams can utilize, and I think that's where the leaderboard will really shine. I do think the top-level teams do stand to gain something from it, but I think that the mid-level teams will really be able to utilize it, because there needs to be more ways for us to chart progression in real time. Because progression in Splatoon is very hard to chart. This is for a number of reasons. One, if you want to chart progression, you need some form of consistent play, right? Maybe it's entering weeklies, maybe it's having all 4 players or only 4 players that compete and play all the time. Maybe it's VOD review, you slowly see yourself get better. But if you don't have those tournaments to compete against other people your level, it doesn't really provide a whole lot to you. You can say, yeah, we're getting better, and then you run into a pool of death at an event, and you're like, well, are we getting better? We can't really tell. And so I think that having more opportunities to chart your progress in real time is a huge deal. And for those of you who do check the leaderboard out, the results are already in from yesterday's event. And if I'm wrong here, I may put my foot in my mouth, but I thought that I saw some updates that it already made in. I know that Bleck has done a fantastic job crafting this database to be something that can be self-sustaining. And the fact that, again, it's real time, and if it's not 100% real time, it's certainly quicker than waiting every 2 weeks for a major event to come up. And it can show you teams that are approximately close to you. And as we talked with Quake last week, you want to scrim against teams that are close to your skill level. Having something like a leaderboard that updates and can show you who is close to you gives you the opportunity to network, to establish some sort of social credit. You can find maybe teams that you could do pickups on, and if nothing else, it gives you another chance to advertise your team and your skill set. And you may say, well, okay, what's the point of this? There's no real reason for this. And maybe you're right, maybe you're not, maybe you're wrong, but the fact of the matter is we already do this. And again, Dragonuto brought this up. People love putting Div X, love putting Div 1. Ludi already exists as a sort of conduit for this type of discussion and this type of measuring. If we have the leaderboard in addition to that, and if it's something that people really buy into and accept, it's another opportunity, and perhaps even a more accurate opportunity, to really advertise yourself and showcase what you can do and what you have done in the past. And there's going to be discussions in the future, as there should be, about, is this scoring system right? And I'm hoping that it's a tool that can grow with us as we move into the future of Splatoon 2 and a potential Splatoon 3. But the fact of the matter is, this is a resource that we have now that we have not had in this capacity at any point in our existence. For my money, we need to buy into it at least at the start, see if it works, and try to get all that we can out of it. And I'm not just saying this because I know the amount of work that Bleck put into it. I'm saying it because we have asked for so long for a tool to be able to chart where we stand with regards to other players. This now exists. We need to discuss it more, and we need to buy into it more. Now, even though I know that was a bit preachy, I do have a more specific soapbox segment for you all tonight. The soapbox segment, for those of you who missed last week, is where I get a little preachy, and I talk about a topic that I really like in the Splatoon community, and only what I like in the Splatoon community. So it may not always be a topic that is immediately relevant, but in this case it is. And production value for you all, I actually have a couple different slides to show you for some of these later segments of the show. So without further ado, I will get into my soapbox, which is titled The Flex Player. So I was browsing Twitter, as I often do, and I happened upon a couple tweets that I really, really thought were interesting. I have listed these right here for you, the tweets by the man himself, Mr. Sendao C. And I'll read these to you here. I'm hoping that you all can read them, but I will anyway, because content, more important than just playing the flavor of the month, is knowing one weapon really well that you keep grinding from patch to patch. This game is balanced, and being an expert at a weapon trumps almost anything else. 1 minute later, Being a flex player is almost worthless. It doesn't mean you know all weapons, but closer that you know none of them. You can have a weapon pool of 2 that works well across 23 maps. And this intrigued me because, well, okay, let me back up a little bit and talk about what the scene's definition of a flex player is here first. And he put flex in asterisks, so I'll go ahead and do the same. A flex player oftentimes has been defined, at least from my perspective and the conversation that I have seen, as a player that is able to swap between different classes of weapons over the course of different patches. Maybe you can play Brellas, maybe you can also play a shooter if your team needs another shooter at the front line. Maybe you're a backliner who can also switch to a midline if you want to run a more aggressive comp. Maybe you can run multiple different weapons within the same class. Maybe you can play all of the Brellas. Anything along those lines, you can switch over to Brush. These different things that I think make up what we would consider a flex player. But then I was very curious because by this definition, I think that most people would consider that Sendo himself is a flex player, as is Kyo, who a lot of people would argue is one of, if not the best player in all of North America, and Etna, who, from the GG Boys, has described himself in his own words as being the best flex player there is, or the best multi-weapon player. Ganba, please don't hate me if I misquoted him there. I thought that I got your quote approximately right, but I do remember him talking about that. So, what's wrong with being a flex player? What is Sendo really getting at here? And I thought about this for a while, and I actually think that there's a pretty good analogy to, again, go over to the Smash community and the fighting game community as a whole. It's a term called character crisis, and I think some of you who have played a fighting game probably know about what this is. It's where you maybe have a couple of characters you feel you can play reasonably well, but you're not sure which one is actually going to get you the best overall results. Maybe one tournament you take your Ike to a tournament, and it gets pretty well. Maybe you go 3-2, maybe you go 4-2, and then the next tournament, your Ike plays really poorly. Maybe it's not even a matchup steal. Maybe the Ike just doesn't play, so then you switch over to your Terry, and then that goes 4-2, and you're like, oh, cool, so my Terry is better, and then your Terry has a bad tournament, and you're just stuck in this horrible limbo of not knowing what it is. And again, it's not a true one-to-one analogy, but I'd argue that some people go through similar things with weapons in Splatoon. They'll play a weapon, they'll have a few good games in it with solo, they'll take it to a scrim, it'll play good for one game, bad for one game. They aren't sure if it's good, so they go to a different weapon that they can play at roughly the same level. And then by the time the scrim is over, you've gone between 5 different weapons, and you've gained nothing. You're unsure of what your best weapon is. When the rubber meets the road, you aren't sure what you're going to lean on, what your rock is. By constantly swapping weapons, you can stunt your understanding of the game's fundamentals. And I think that developing the game's fundamentals is the most important part. And Sendo remarks that you can get all 23 maps out of maybe 2 weapons. And to make sure that I'm not misrepresenting here, when he talks about weapons, he's talking about all kits of a weapon. There are certain, of course, nuances that different sets of a weapon will have, but for the most part, if you can play the main weapon at a high level, you're going to be able to get a lot out of each of the different kits. So, want to make sure that I cover my bases there. But by understanding one weapon and the fundamentals of the game fully through that one weapon, you will get a greater understanding of the game. And that you need to develop that understanding before you start swapping weapons around and not in reverse. Do not try to understand the game's fundamentals through a ton of different weapons. Maybe it is doable, but it's going to take you much, much longer. If you take a top team and you take out all of their mains and put them with these different weapons, they're still going to be able to beat the vast majority of the teams that play in Splatoon. I truly believe that. If you take FT Win, stick Shaq on Blaster, put Kyo on a different weapon here, they are still going to be able to beat a lot of NA teams, and it's because they have worked their fundamentals. And this is not to say that you can't play multiple weapons on your way of learning the fundamentals. But if you're looking at swapping between weapons and flexing between top picks of the month, you are going to stunt your growth. Weapons will never be able to make you a top player. You are a top player that picks a weapon, and you are only able to gain that top player status by developing your fundamentals and growing through there. That is Nine's soapbox for the day. I hope you enjoyed that part. Again, Fundamentals, everybody. Learn the fundamentals, learn teamwork, worry about weapons secondarily. There are a lot of good weapons in Splatoon. Top teams can win with a lot of different weapons. So get good at the game, then worry about your weapons. We will move on now to our final part here. Polls and shilling. The show has been going on for about an hour now, which means that we are right on time. I have kept to my schedule so well here. I am so proud of myself. So we're going to talk a little bit about this. And now, again, production value. We have the poll results from last week. Again, for those of you who aren't aware, the polls are here as a way for you all to contribute to the show in your own way. Take a look at this. The poll results from the 1/12/2020 show. What do you find is the most difficult aspect of improving in Splatoon? Again, I'm assuming that you all can read, but let's go ahead and read them out. Lack of study resources took second place with 31.4% of the vote. Trouble finding opponents with 29.1% of the vote. And the abstract nature of the game winning with 39.5% of the vote. And as Gamba has noted here, it is a lot closer. This is very close. Nobody got over 40% of the vote. It's all very, very close to a full 1/3 split. Nice 3 even pieces of the pie. And I think this tells you all you need to know about improving in a game like Splatoon. The purpose of this poll was to get an idea of what people thought was difficult, and this tells me what I originally suspected, that everybody has their own reasons that they find or that they struggle to improve, and that all of them are equally valid here. Some people find that they don't have enough resources. Some people say, okay, I've got the resources I need, but I can't find opponents. And some people still say, this game's so wacky, I don't even know where to start. And so I thought that that was really impressive to get such great involvement and to get such even involvement. And we also have a couple responses here because I wanted to kind of take note of some of the responses. And each week that we do these polls, I do want to take a look at some of the top responses that I'd enjoyed. So here you go right here, the top responses. I had a couple here that I liked because they brought up an interesting aspect that I hadn't really considered at first, and these both say sort of the same thing. Dia, always being quite punctual, said, trouble finding teammates that fit. On the other side, One Winged Akira says, the abstract nature can make it sometimes so that players will join a team, all with completely different understandings of how the game works. Excuse me. A lot of the difficulty I find is in ensuring that all players are on the same page, otherwise the team will struggle to properly improve. And because of this, I thought, okay, these both bring up very excellent points. A lot of it is based on teammates. Even if one person is motivated, thinks they understand, getting the wrong mix of players can make it all very poor. So, this week's poll, which I have just now posted, attached to the main tweet that was on part of it, is actually something very similar to that. The poll for this week that will be up for 6 days is going to be, what skills do you most want in a teammate? What do you value most in a teammate joining a team? Now, this all assumes, because I already know what everyone is going to say, that you get along. And I even noted that in the poll and in the main tweet. This assumes, of course, that you get along with your team. Some people won't consider that a requirement, but I think a lot more of you will. I have seen far more teams disband because people don't like each other than because they don't agree about the game or anything along those lines. So, that part is assumed. Your 4 options are skill, relative skill at the game. Do you want your teammates to be good at the game to team up with them? Is that not as big a deal? Do you think that you can grow skill? Availability. How available are you? Is it that you need to be available all 5 days? Does your ability need to match up? Does it work if someone is available mostly in the evenings and someone else is available mostly on weekends? Would you be willing to make that work? Complementary weapon choices. Do you want somebody who mains weapons that fit well with what you do? If I'm a backliner, do I want to be on a team with someone else who can play backline? Does either one of us want to swap off the backline? Do either one of us think we can swap off backline? And ambitious goals for the last one. Do you want to team with somebody who is aiming for the top? Do you want somebody who has a similar level of goal as you? Is that more important to you than them actually being good at the game, that they want to be good at the game? And I think ideally, all of this would be part of your teammate. I think we can all agree everybody would want to have all of these qualities in a teammate with someone who also gets along with them. But as we all know, that is not always doable. That is not always something that is going to happen. But we can hope. But for now, go ahead and select one of those. Go ahead and post your thoughts if you have deeper thoughts as well. Just under that poll, you might be one of the top responses that is selected for the next show. And on that note, we do have the next person that we will be interviewing, or maybe the next persons. Our next interview is going to be the boys of FT Win. We will be interviewing the top North American team, your North American champion. By nearly every metric that we can imagine, we will be getting an interview with them at G7. It is going to be an in-person interview. I'm not 100% certain as to what the logistics of it will be. I might have to record the interview and then just make a video and then attach it to the next show when I get back. It might be something that I can do live. Still working those details out, but that is the ultimate goal. They have all agreed. An announcement post will be made, if not today, tomorrow when the video goes live as well. But I'm very excited to get to talk to them. I'll be talking to them about their journeys through the game, what keeps them motivated, and what their goals are with their new team. But for now, I want to thank everybody for joining me on the Back Nine. If you did enjoy this, consider following, consider sharing this with your friends. We're going to try to keep it on a consistent time frame as well. Please go ahead, go on YouTube, like the video, share it with your friends there for too. Give it a view if you want to, even though you've already seen this. YouTube is very convenient. So thank you once again. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I will see you all in the next stream.